When does personal property turn into private property? Welcome to the first edition of Questions for Anti-Capitalists. A short intro to what this series is about. There are positive things in our societies that, according to my current understanding, are only possible in the comfort of capitalism. Therefore, I wanted to ask communists, anarchists, and everyone else who complains about the evils of capitalism, how do they think these positive elements that exist in capitalism will be preserved after its abolition, if they even will be? Or maybe there are people who don't consider these things positives at all, and those people are free to present their response after they hear my point. With that out of the way, let's look at a scenario that could happen in a non-capitalist system, for example communism. In this case, no one person or small group owns, for example, factories, school services, and so on. In one of these communities, imagine there is a person with an idea, invention, or product. Let's say it's someone who produces wine. Also, there is either no one else that makes wine in that area, or there is no one with a recipe and technique that produces wine of that quality. Let's consider now that the person who invented, or at least simply possesses the recipe, let's call it A, wants to start making this wine. Now there are two scenarios I want to consider, and they will each take a different path depending on whether or not this society uses money or any form of currency. First situation, money exists. Person A prepares the grapes and other ingredients, boils the resulting juices, and bottles the finished wine. A few samples are given to A's relatives and friends, and when neighbors or people around the town come back, person A sells some of the bottles. The situation goes well enough, person A at the moment also works at a regular job, but it can still produce enough wine to sell. After a while, it becomes clear that the demand for this type of wine is too large for simply making it in a large pot, so person A, possibly together with his family and friends, makes a shed or expands the house to make room specifically for more grape processing barrels and stoves. After a while, the production is high enough and profitable enough that it's decided to buy and gather the materials to make a building with the special role of making this wine. Everyone in the community who lives near or frequents this area where this building will be built agrees on it, and those who take part are paid in either money, wine, or both. When the construction is finished, person A is still able to operate the building and wine production on its own. The building was built only with the materials and labor bought using person A's personal, non-borrowed money. The wine production business continues to grow, possibly even the building expands or others are built, until two things happen. First, wine making becomes profitable enough for person A to no longer need another job. Then operating this process becomes consuming enough as for person A to be incapable of managing all of it on its own. Thus other people are called and paid to work with person A. Until now, I described the gradual transition from making wine for personal usage all the way up to person A owns a factory with employees. If again, one step further, if other people build buildings just like that one, and at some point person A buys some of them under a price agreed upon, is anything that person A owns private property? Given that communism seeks the abolition of private property like factories and owning, let's say, apartment complexes. Is person A's obligation at any point to give away any building built using its resources or bought under personal or group agreement? Which of them and why? Who would enforce such a rule? As for the second scenario, one without money, in the earlier stages, exchanges can be made through bartering, and building the factories can be done by agreeing upon person A being responsible for having authority over them. I know, this was a very short second scenario, but the consequences of this series of events happening in the absence of money wasn't the main idea being put under scrutiny. I'm now done exploring this problem I see in this non-capitalistic society, so let me ask the question again. In that whole series of events, which are the limits put on person A? When money is being exchanged? When the shed is being built? When gathering resources for building it? When people agree to build the factories? When person A quits from the job held before transitioning to making wine? When people are hired? When another building not obtained with the personal labor and resources of person A is bought? If you're an anti-capitalist of any flavor, or if you understand communism or any other similar systems and you respond to this, why are you making the distinction where you did? If you accept all the earlier events as legitimate, why do you oppose capitalism? Do you consider that this situation being possible doesn't require or doesn't lead to capitalism? And if you did make a distinction, and you can explain why it's there, how do you enforce it, and why is this enforcement legitimate? I only have one more thing I want anti-capitalists to think about. If you consider that no one in a post-capitalist society would have the concept of what I described earlier, how would the person react to being introduced to this notion? If you think that that person will be shut down, doesn't it mean it's a less free society that you're rooting for? And if the idea is accepted, how do you think that society won't return to capitalism? Anyway, I probably addressed multiple types of anti-capitalists with the questions from the last minute, but if you have some answers, please share them, I'm interested to hear. I will end with a message to my audience. See how a very simple thought experiment can lead to so many questions? This will be relevant for later, and if you keep this in mind, you will probably understand some trends you'll see in the future of my channel. You can always rely on the subliminal messages. Have a great week. If I hooked you, see you in the next video, and let my channel make you stronger.